All right, yes, indeed. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Um, yeah, thank you, Yejin and the band, for that song. And let's give a hand to our new MC here as well. Early, good job, Merlin. So, yeah, last week we spoke about gratitude and appreciation. And just a simple recap. Gratitude is primarily kind of vertical, appreciation to God, your parents, for what you have. But appreciation is just as important. It's when you actually express appreciation for somebody. It's primarily horizontal, but people also need to feel that you need them, you appreciate them. So both are really important. So for more, you can always check online for our sermon series. But today I wanted to go into the next realm of heart. So we have 4 realms of heart, and we covered the children and siblings realm. And today I wanted to go into the conjugal realm. So this is a very important realm of heart of the 4 realms, and it's between husband and wife. So let's start with the definition. According to the Oxford Online Dictionary, conjugal is relating to marriage or the relationship of a married couple. Okay, simply enough, that's what conjugal means. But let's go further into what does the scriptures say about marital love. There's a lot of wisdom in scripture, and so I always like to find at least one quote from the Bible. This is from Ephesians 5:33. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Very simple. Love and respect, right? It's simple to say, much harder to do consistently. We always know that in marriage, it's so important to respect and love. And actually, I was really appreciate all the testimonies as well for the tips on marriage. Even the young folks here, I felt like my sermon was already done by the time the testimonies was done. But thank you for that. So yes, the essence of marital love is, of course, loving each other, respecting each other. And it's simple enough to say, but what are some challenges, do you think, with marital love? What are some challenges? You see everything. Okay. The good, the bad, the ugly. When you live with them for 20 years, even 1 year, you kind of see everything, right? That's no challenge. It's one thing to be in love, cloud nine, in the dating phase, or um, you know that kind of phase. But when you actually live together, you see everything. What are some other challenges? Yes. Communication, sincere communication is challenging, especially if you come from different cultures, if you have different languages. But even if you were both born and raised in America, you know, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So we come from different planets. And so even the way we understand and communicate with each other is very different. And so sincere communication is definitely a challenge in all marital relations. Any other challenges with marital relations we see? Yes. Oh. Right. Mm. Okay. So looks like we have a sermon series coming up here too. But basically, what I heard was that we're fortunate that in our marriage blessing, we do have a common goal in mind. Many, although they have love for each other, there may not be a very strong sense of a common goal beyond the love relationship within each other. So that's something we do have in the marriage blessing that we're grateful for. But even if you have the same goal, the approach on how to get there may be different from each side. So anyway, there are many challenges, but one common challenge I know in society is staying committed to each other. Staying faithful to each other even after marriage is quite challenging. We may, growing up in this community, we may not kind of experience it as much, but I know in society this is a very, very common challenge, is that even if you get married, doesn't mean you're gonna be sticking around too long with each other. Even though they may want to, it's very challenging to continue. So I want to go into what is unique about the conjugal realm of heart. There's 3 points I wanted to focus on today, but what do you think is different in the conjugal realm of heart as compared to the other 3 realms of heart? So there's children's realm of heart, siblings, and parental realm of heart, but what makes conjugal realm different? Yes? It's exclusive. Give the women 10 points. Yes, we have one of the 3 points is exclusivity. That is very, very important. We'll go into it, but shortly, hold on one second. The exclusivity is different from the other 3 realms of heart, right? Parents, you might have multiple children. Siblings, you might have multiple siblings or your colleagues. And as a child, you have both your dad and your mom. But the husband and wife is meant to be just one person. Okay? And this is something that's really important about the protecting the conjugal realm of heart. Any other points? What makes this realm unique? Sexual intimacy, having that. You don't have that with other realms of heart. This is part of the aspect that makes and is connected with the exclusivity, is that this is the only relationship where you're meant to have the most close relationship of sexual activity. All right, we're gonna go into those 3 points, and the first one, look at that, you got it, meant to be exclusive. So I grew up in this community, so I was taught and grew up with this understanding. And so when I was growing up in high school, I faced a pretty sudden challenge. I might have shared this story before, but it's a good story, so let's listen. The prom story. So I was in my junior year, high school, AP bio class, and I had a lab partner, and she said she wanted to meet me after class, very, thought it was about homework or something like that. And so right after class, kind of said, okay, so what do you want to talk about? And she says, will you go out to the prom with me? Right? And this was, she was a senior in high school. So it was a big deal for her to ask me. And I just froze. I was like, it was really totally, I must have been really dull. I didn't see it coming. It was just like all of a sudden. And then, and she saw that I was shocked because I was just like, frozen. And then she was like, don't worry, if I already talked with my parents and they're willing to pay for your ticket as well, right? $75 back then, that was big. My lunch money was $1 a day. So So I couldn't think of anything, so I quickly said, okay, let me talk to my parents and I'll get back to you. And then so she let me go. So I quickly went down the hallway. And as I was turning the corner of the hallway, I was suddenly surrounded by 5 other senior girls. And they were like, "What did you say?" And I was like, "Oh, shoot." Fortunately, one of the 5 ladies, they were one of my friend's elder sisters. So she was like, let him go. So she gave me a little bit of space so I could run through and get through down the hallway. So I got home. I was struggling. Well, I guess struggling's not the best word. I was calculating the pros and cons. I was like, okay, if I go to the prom, oh man, my friends would really respect me. I'll get a lot of props. I know I won't do anything stupid. It'll be fun. It'll be new, different, all that kind of stuff. But then I was looking about the cons. Well, what are the cons? And I was like, well, yeah, this is kind of against what we were taught growing up. And also, this would be a bad example for my younger siblings. That's kind of what I was thinking. So I ended up not talking to my parents, but I did go to the prayer room and I did ask God, well, God, what should I do in this situation? And it was interesting. The thought that occurred was, the first thought that came actually when I sat down to pray was, I want to have my first dance with my wife. That was the first thought that came. And I was like, that's true. I do want my first dance with my wife. And then so I said, okay, so it's clear to me that, I'm probably gonna have to say no. But then I was like, well, what do I tell her? Because, she made such a big deal to kind of, get the courage and get her friends on board and her parents on board. And I was like, oh my goodness, this would be devastating for her. So my heart really went out. I was like, oh my gosh, what can I do? So Monday comes around. I decide, okay, can we talk after class? So we went to the library and we sat down and I just started to explain God, the fall, restoration, the blessing, true parents, and me being born as a blessed child, and having an arranged marriage, and that's why I can't go out with you. Like that. So it took about 3 hours to explain everything. She listened for 3 hours, but she was grateful. She appreciated that I took the time to kind of explain instead of just kind of, saying no. And then later that night, I heard, someone else actually invited her to the prom, so she still had a date. So yeah, that's what happened. And then fast forward like 4 or 5 years. This was my senior year. This is after I got blessed, but the senior year, my wife had a winter ball. And so I think I was in my, where was I? Yeah, she was in her senior year. I was in my sophomore year in college. But we went out and I fulfilled my dream of having my first dance with my wife. So that was it. Okay, why did I share this story? Anyway, point is, even for singles, reason why we really emphasize purity and non-exclusive relationship before they're married is because we know how hard it is to stay committed to each other, even after marriage. And so by really preparing your heart and your hormones to really commit to one person is preparation for maintaining that and growing that in marriage. So it might seem kind of rigid, but I really feel it's a really important practice for our young folk to prepare, maintain, or continue to develop your sexual integrity and purity. I know sometimes mistakes happen, things happen, but there's always a pathway to restore that and really get solid in terms of your commitment to one person before going into the blessing, marriage and blessing. So that's one thing I'm really appreciate about our community. Second point, this was interesting. The marital relationship is the only one that doesn't start as a relationship of blood. That's interesting, but let's read. The relationship between husband and wife is different from that between parent and child or among siblings because it does not start out as a bond of blood. The husband-wife relationship contains infinite and inexhaustible treasures. Once formed in the presence of God, the bond of husband and wife is meant to be absolute, and the two should become inseparable for eternity. So, yeah, it's interesting, right? Because parent and child, we're bonded by blood, right? We have the same DNA lineage, and there's a connection. We get features from our parents. Even our siblings, even though we don't believe that we came from the same parents, by definition, by scientific law, we are related to each other, right? By blood. But your spouse is not related by blood. It's the only one. That's not like a familial relationship. It doesn't start that way. But once you start your marital life and have sexual relationships, actually that's when a bond, a strong bond is formed that is meant to be stronger than any other relationship. And that's what makes this realm of hearts so special, is that although it starts off as not even a blood relation, by the end of it, you're meant to have this relationship between husband and wife is meant to be stronger than any other relationship that you have. It says here, the two should become inseparable for eternity. It's a long time, guys. But you know, I've at this point, me and my wife have been married through the marriage blessing for 23 years, 23 and a half. So God bless her. But you know, we've been together longer than we've been as singles. Right, so we've really spent more time, and I spent more time with her than even my parents or siblings at this point, right? Or even my children, right? So really, this relationship is meant to be the most powerful, intimate, strong relationship. Yeah, that's something that's really special about this realm. And finally, there's one more point. Oh, actually, let me... Scrolling into Sean. Okay, what story to share about this one? Okay, one thing I would say is, you know, in the Bible it says, actually, I'm a little bit rusty here, sorry, but something about people leaving their parents for their spouse, right? Matthew 19? 95. 19:5. Matthew 19:5. Okay, we have some. All right, we'll stick with the Matthew 19:5. Anyway, it's really a verse that says people will leave even their parents to become one in flesh with each other as husband and wife, right? And I remember experiencing this early in our relationship, me and my spouse, my wife. Shikuko, we came from different cultures in our families in terms of our faith traditions. So my parents were very strict growing up. Not saying that that's good or bad, just that's how it was. And so when we got blessed in marriage, my parents were actually concerned because her faith traditions wasn't the same as ours growing up. And to a point where I remember at some point they even suggested maybe this isn't the best to keep or something like that. I was appalled, yeah. Right, exactly. I was appalled. And I was like, wait a minute. This is my wife you're talking about here. And I remember fighting with my parents or arguing because of that point. And I do feel like it is a part of the natural, and this is something that I'm sure many married couples face, was the challenges with your parents-in-laws. Anyone experience challenge with parent-in-laws? Nobody? Wow. You guys are perfect. My goodness. No, it's a historic challenge, you know. The daughter never being able to fully satisfy the mother-in-law's expectations, or, different kind of challenges like that. So those are real, but the strongest bond is meant to be between the husband and wife. Third and third and very important point is that you are meant to experience all the four realms of heart in that one relationship. Okay, this is also important. This actually makes it exciting. You're not just meant to be lovey-dovey and in bed all day having sex. No? Okay, sorry. The conjugal realm is supposed to be, of course, there's the intimacy and the strong bond and so on and so forth, but you're meant to experience being a child to your spouse, being a parent to your spouse, being a sibling to your spouse. Here, let's read. It is the realm of the absolute subject and object partners in the four great realms of heart. The wife sees in her husband the ideal heavenly son, heavenly older brother, heavenly husband, and father. To the husband, his wife possesses the corresponding absolute qualities as the ideal heavenly daughter, heavenly sister, heavenly wife, and mother. So yeah, it's interesting. But in the conjugal realm of heart, this is the realm where you can actually experience all four realms of heart. Okay, another story. So this was like within the first year of getting blessed in marriage together. And I remember asking my wife, oh, could you cut my hair for me? Right? And she was like, just go to the barber, right? But I insisted. I was like, no, I want you to cut my hair. It's like, I don't understand why you can't just go to the barber. I don't even know how to cut hair. And I was like, it's okay. I want you to cut my hair, right? So anyway, I was very persistent, and so she gave in, and she was like, okay, fine. So, she got some tools, and we spent like maybe 2 hours, she's like trying to cut my hair. And then, of course, since it's the first time, she makes some mistakes, and there's like a, slight bald spot here and there. And then she's devastated, right? She's like, oh my goodness, this is so terrible. I can't believe you made me cut your hair. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. It'll grow out, it'll grow. But since she thought it was so strange and I didn't know why it was so strange, I reflected, why is it so strange for me to ask for my wife to cut my hair? So upon my reflection, I realized actually that my mom used to cut my hair. And for me, that was an act of love, of receiving love from my mom, was when she would cut my hair. My siblings didn't do that, but even college, I had my mom cut my hair. So I realized that I was seeking to receive a mother's love through my spouse. And there was some other stuff like, I remember I asked, oh, can you clean my ears? She was like, ew, no way. Get away from me, right? But I realized these are things that, again, my mom used to do for me, and so I felt like I wanted to receive that same love as well. So this is natural. This is normal. We're meant to actually experience, after really getting married, is experience all of these realms of heart with each other. And if you know that, then you can feel free to experiment and practice with your spouse all the different realms of heart relationships. And if you see it that way, there's an endless possibilities in terms of how to relate with your spouse. Does that make sense? All right. Yeah, we can give a hand for that. That's really important. So what that means also, for those who are single, all your different realms of heart that we're practicing as a child, as a sibling, this is preparation so that you can get all of that experience so that you can love your spouse. Does that make sense? You know, when I was on missionary training, what they did, you know, when you spend a lot of time together, you struggle with each other, right? Anyone experience like being in a van for like months on end with the same people? Only a few of you? Oh my goodness. Anyway, I guess that is an odd experience. Anyway, in our missionary experience, we would spend time, a lot of time, like fundraising and being in the vans, and we get really tired of each other. But then, every time we go to a workshop, like a marriage prep blessing workshop, they would say, you know, the person you struggle the most with may become your future spouse. What? Why would I get married? You know. But the point was, anything that you struggle with in terms of relationship, it will come out in your most closest relationship. And so the people you struggle with is an opportunity for you to grow your heart so that you can even love that aspect in your future spouse as well. What a blessing. So as singles, don't worry. There's a lot of preparation, and everything that you're doing is also practice for that. So this sermon is very relevant to you guys as well. Okay? Everything is in preparation for that. Okay, this is getting long, so I'm just going to go through the final parts. Why is marital love so important to our community? There's a few passages from our founders, Father and Mother Moon, that I want to read. The first human beings lost the standard due to the fall. Hence, without recovering it, everything in the world is in vain. Therefore, the only begotten Son and the only begotten daughter on God's side must establish the realm of conjugal love as husband and wife. For Jesus to fulfill his purpose in his lifetime, he needed to find his bride, but he was not able to do so. That is why he left the concept, I am the bridegroom, and you are the bride, as his last testament. Jesus said that he was God's only begotten Son and that God was his Father. That claim indicates that as an individual, he had received God's first love. Interesting. Received God's first love as essential as the only begotten Son. Although God came to have his only begotten Son, Jesus, he did not yet have his only begotten daughter. Jesus was unable to find her. Thus, Jesus must return to meet God's only begotten daughter, who can totally receive God's love. There's a few more. That is why the Lord at the second advent must celebrate the marriage supper of the Lamb, that is, he is required to marry. This man who completely receives God's first love must marry a woman who completely receives God's first love, and they must start a family together, thus restoring the positions of unfallen Adam and Eve. So, this is something I want to end with. Marriage to our faith community is more than just a legal document and a commitment of relationship with each other. It's actually a very fundamental, what's the word I'm looking for? Sacrament. It's a fundamental sacrament because we know that again, according to our teachings, that from the beginning of history, humanity disconnected from God because of their first misuse of love, and that the first relationship of love was not centered on God's love. And so all of human history has been a story of God trying to restore and establish that original love, which was one man who really understands and connects with God's love, and one woman who really understands and connects with God's love, that on that foundation they come together as a true couple. That was the beginning point of our whole movement in 1960 with the holy marriage ceremony. And then on that foundation, many of our couples, actually all the couples here, they received the marriage blessing to continue that tradition of God-centered marriage. So I just want to end with, this is not just, for like a self-help, like marriage support, which is great, all great stuff. But this is connected to our most holy sacrament of really a God-centered restoring and maintaining and strengthening that original ideal that God wanted from the very beginning. So know that your relationship with your spouse is more than just how he or she makes you feel. This is a commitment to really honor God and God's hope and dream for you as a couple. Okay, so with that said, we'll go into the summary, which is love your spouse exclusively, seek to experience all four realms of heart with your spouse, and the marriage blessing is really a holy sacrament. So let's go into our reflection question. Turn to someone next to you. If you don't want to talk to somebody, that's okay. You can just reflect on your own. But if you do want to chat, you can ask your neighbor, what can I do to love my spouse? Or if you're single, prepare for my future spouse this week. Well, you could, that's fine. Or you can turn to someone else. Okay, 5 minutes, please discuss, and we'll wrap it up from there. So for me, I like to ask, the challenge for this week is do something to make your spouse smile or laugh. Okay? So, think about that. That's the challenge. Do something to make your spouse smile or laugh. If you're single, just serve somebody. Okay. That is all. Thank you for being a great congregation and audience. I hope you got something from the message, and we'll see you next week.